Hello. So, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Brandon, of all the movies that are out, of all the films currently playing that you could go and do a review on, why then Axel? And I answer, dear viewer, because I have heard nothing about this movie. Absolutely, positively nothing. I never saw a trailer for it, had to look that up online. I saw no commercials for it. I have seen no reviews for it, which is an oddity in this day and age. You know, with all the, myself included, with all the, the online reviewers and whatnot, you'd think that of all the ones I watch, that somebody, somewhere, would have done a review of this movie, especially when you consider that so many of the reviewers I watch love nothing more than grabbing onto a film like this and just ripping it to shreds. It's an easy target. And yet, I have heard absolutely nothing. And when I hear absolutely nothing, it truly gets me wondering what is going on with this movie. Does no one care about the story of a young dirt bike racer and his mechanical dog? Well, I care, Axel. I care. Brandon cares about your plight. And thus, today, I went and saw the movie about the robot dog. And here's the really funny part. When you don't hear a lot about a movie, what that usually means is that the studio has absolutely no faith in it. You can kind of tell from this movie that the studio had absolutely no faith in it, given when it was released. I'm sorry about the reflection in the back there, but when it was released, the sheer lack of any kind of publicity surrounding it. So it's clear the studio made it. You're not sure why they made it, because again, clearly they had no faith in it. The director has done nothing prior to this. The stars are all pretty much unknowns, with the only exceptions being Thomas Jane, who is best known for playing the Punisher in a really, really weird Punisher movie. I'm not even going to say it's bad, but it's bad in a weird, fun way. And Becky G, a Latin pop singer who made her film debut in last year's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. Or just Power Rangers. I don't know why they ditched the Mighty Morphin, but anywho. So it's very clear that the studio that put out this film really couldn't realize they flushed a lot of money down it and didn't care. And normally when that happens, what you end up with is something pretty bad. And I'm gonna be honest with you folks, this is not a terrible movie. It's not a great movie. It's not a piece of science fiction masterwork. It is exactly what it says on the box. It's a movie for younger kids, clearly. You can tell that by a number of factors. Number one, the rating, and number two, you can just get that feeling. They have the obligatory party scene there very early towards the beginning, and all the kids at the party, they're not drinking beer, they're drinking soda. So you can tell this was meant for younger kids. And if you look at it from that viewpoint, it's actually a pretty good film. What I take away from that is that I know that if I had seen this movie when I was a kid, just knowing the kind of stuff I watched then and the kind of stuff I watch now, I probably would have loved this movie. This probably would have been like my new favorite thing. I do not think it is a terrible film. I think it is flawed and kind of wacky, but in a very endearing kind of way. So here's the story, if you haven't heard of it, because odds are you probably haven't. So our lead, who's the actor's name I have no clue of, because we've never seen him before, so I'm just going to call him 90s McHandsome. So 90s McHandsome is an aspiring dirt bike champion, and, you know, he and his dad, as played by the Punisher, are, you know, they're poor, but they're good salt-of-the-earth people, and he's going to be that dirt bike champion no matter what. And 90s McHandsome runs afoul of movie douchebag bully. Okay, so movie douchebag bully and his friends take 90s McHandsome out into the desert to supposedly do some publicity footage for him to help get him some sponsors, and in fact strand him out there. And while stranded out there, 90s McHandsome comes across Axel, a state-of-the-art military hardware dog, okay, that has escaped from the lab that was building it. For reasons they don't get into, but they highly suggest that the robot dog, is evolving throughout the film, and so the dog is tired of being tested on and shot out. So it's kind of a slight allegory for animal cruelty, I suppose. And the dog runs away and is hiding out in this junkyard that 90s McHandsome finds him in, and basically Axel imprints on 90s McHandsome and says, you know, basically, you're now my owner. So now 90s McHandsome and Becky G, you know, the, of course, obligatory hot girl, are now trying to protect Axel from all the people who want to do him harm in various ways. So it's kind of a cross between Short Circuit and Lassie. If you felt like such a thing needed to exist, which apparently someone really did. I looked the writer and director up, because it's the same person, on IMDb just before the movie started. And the only other thing he directed was another, I don't know if it's a film or a pitch thing or something, that has the exact same plot as this. So clearly this is a story that this director really wanted to tell, for whatever reason. You can tell, once again, that this is a much lower budget picture than some others that have come out in the same kind of vein. Number one, this film does not rely solely on CG to create Axel. There is some puppet work in there. I wish I could say it was impressive puppet work. It is not. So, but first of all, I do applaud them for using practical effects, even if I have a very strong feeling it was due mostly to the budget not allowing them to, you know, do CGI for the entire thing. But I applaud them for using puppets and puppet work. I wish they would have gotten someone better. I did not watch the credits. If it turns out the Jim Henson Company did that, I'm gonna be eating my words a lot. But it was not the most impressive puppet work. But then again, it's a robot dog, so there's only so much mobility you can kind of get with that. So that's one. You can tell that the budget was small for that. Two, you know, what I was kind of thinking when I finally watched the trailer online is we'd see a lot more of them running and chasing and trying to, you know, outrun military obstacles and all that. And that really doesn't happen until the very end of the movie. So a lot of the rest of it is them taking Axel from kind of one mundane desert location to another, you know, a junkyard, and then a gas station, and then They take her to where Becky G, and I'm not making that name up, so I'm not just being a dick, like I'm calling him 90s McHandsome. It's actually her name. Where Becky G practices her graffiti art, because of course she does, because, of course she's an artist. So the story is actually a little mundane of just, place to place to place. And again, there's not a lot of chasing, running, jumping, climbing trees going on here, which I was kind of surprised at. I thought that was kind of what the movie was going to be. And I'm not necessarily disappointed it's not. It's just, so it sounds like I'm being really hard on this movie, and in a way I am. Because again, this one, it's one of those films where, again, meant for kids, so you have to kind of accept some of the absurdities that younger kids kind of just will accept right off the bat, or at least they did when I was young. I don't know if they still do, because they're much more tech savvy. Like the fact that 90s McHandsome being able to repair a dirt bike makes him qualified to repair a highly sophisticated piece of military hardware. He can just do that. So yeah, it sounds like I'm being hard on this movie, but here's the thing. The movie is actually quite enjoyable. If you watch it with the understanding that this is meant for kids. And again, I feel like this is a kids movie that if I had been watching it as a young person, I would love. They don't talk down to the kids at all. They avoid a lot of the typical kid movie cliches. The robot dog doesn't pee on anybody, which I thought for sure was going to happen. And the primary relationship of 90s McHandsome and the robot dog is surprisingly well done. I don't know this kid or anything he might have done previously, but 90s McHandsome does not strike me as the best actor in the world. I think he's up and coming. I think this movie is made up of a lot of up and comers or people who have had very small parts in things. But much in the same way, you have to give credit to David Hasselhoff. He carries out a very sophisticated relationship with either a puppet or a CGI creature, and makes that relationship is the primary relationship of the movie, and it works. You really feel that this kid loves this dog. That they have a connection, they have a bond. And the dog doesn't do anything stupid like, talk with a jazzy voice or anything like that. It does a little Predator thing where it picks up a video that they made of 90s McHandsome where he says, "Send it," and the dog will repeat that every so often. But the dog doesn't do anything stupid like that. It is a dog. It is that, kind of that lower intelligence. But there's a personality in that dog. A very clear personality. And I think that's a credit to kind of everybody involved. The director/writer, the actor, and the special effects team, either on the CG or the puppet. I think it's really interesting that they were able to create that relationship and that character. And it all leads to a climax, which is, again, surprisingly tense and heartfelt. Like, I won't say I was crying or anything like that, but I was kind of like, oh. I had an emotional connection to the movie. I was actually kind of really surprised at that. So yeah, there's it's surprising in that. I also got to give a shout out to Becky G, who I think is really working hard to kind of extend her her pop culture life a bit. I really liked her in Power Rangers. And here she's not given a whole lot to do outside of the typical girlfriend in one of these movies role. But she's very watchable. She's got a very pleasant screen persona. I think she works well in ensemble films. I think if you tried to give her something where she'd be the lead, I don't know how well she'd do. But she works really well off of other people and balances really well with other people. And she just comes off, even though she's a very attractive young woman, she comes off as a natural person, a natural charisma. There's nothing kind of propped up and phony and plastic about her. And I think that was a good choice, and I liked her in this, and I liked her in Power Rangers, so I hope they bring her back when they do the supposed Power Ranger sequel they're talking about. So yeah, I think if you've got young kids, especially, I'll just say young kids, because it used to be the thing, especially young boys, but, girls love this kind of stuff too now. Or they're allowed, it's more open. That all sounds terrible. You know what I mean. The market is much more open than it was when I was young. So, and I think that's a good thing. So I think kids might get a big kick out of it. If they like dogs, if they like robots, anything like that, I think it's a good, safe film to take them to, or get it on Netflix or whatever, and I think they'll enjoy it. I think they'll get a kick out of it. And I think it does that thing that not a lot of kids' movies do, especially ones starring teenagers or younger people, is it puts the characters at just the right level. They're not teenagers who are acting like 12-year-olds, but they're not in situations that are too mature or over the heads of the intended audience. I think they're right at that nice balance point where they feel like they're actual teenagers, but you can tell the world and the edges are a little softened for them. But I enjoyed the picture. I enjoyed it enough to say I was entertained. And what I find funny about this year at the movies is two of the movies I've been the most entertained at this year have been these little, no other way to say it, piece of crap movies that clearly nobody liked and nobody cared about, made up of actors who have either never done a really big role or are still trying to break out, this one in the Hurricane Heist. And yet I've had more fun at these movies than I've had at some of these bigger budget things. I think that's a little telling. I think that's because there's a refreshness to it. I think it's because refreshness is not a word. I think it's because there's an earnest outlook on it. There's an honesty to it. There's a good energy to it, and they're trying to do the best they can with what little budget and faith they've been given. So, final grade for Axel. I'm gonna put it at a solid B. Solid B film. And I mean that not just in that's kind of a B movie. But it's entertaining enough. It's just good enough. I think the plot is a little meandering and a little confusing as to the main villain and what his overall goal is, if he has a goal, if he can even be called the villain, but he becomes one kind of at the end. I don't know. It's all very weird. But the core performances of 90s McHandsome, Becky G, and the puppet / CGI Axel are done very well, compelling enough to get you invested in the movie, and gives you a surprisingly satisfying conclusion. So, yay Axel. Yay for kind of going above and beyond there. Good dog. Good dog, Axel. The last thing I want to close is I just had this weird comic thought a few minutes ago. What I think they need to do is I think they need to kind of pull a Cloverfield on this, where the Cloverfield films take movies that already exist and then cut little bits into them to help fit them into the Cloverfield universe. What I think they need to do is I think Hanna-Barbera needs to get a hold of this, splice a few things in, and say that this is the Dyno-Mutt origin story, and that in the next film, there's going to be a next film, 90s McHandsome becomes the Blue Falcon, and this is the beginning of the Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. I'm surprised they didn't do that, to be completely honest. I think that'd be awesome. I would pay good money. Shut up and take my money. I would watch the shit out of that. So yes. So yeah, fun little flick, but nothing really special. All right. Labor Day weekend at the movies rolls on. I've got a few more on my list. At least one more I definitely am going to check out, and a couple that I'm like, well, if I get to that, if I have time, I'll check it out. So have a couple more of these I'm going to try to do. Hope everybody's having a good Labor Day weekend. And until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.